Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, my host companion, it's Sejohn Sarowick. How you doing, Sejohn?
The world owes me an hour of sleep.
The world does, and you'll get it in November.
Yeah,
that's
great.
That's how that works. You know what? I feel bad. If we're going to talk about being owed something, what about those shows that are set to air from 2 to 3 p.m. last night that don't happen? It just skips over those shows.
I don't know if that's like hot commodity airtime. So I don't know if there's really much going on at that time that those shows, quote unquote, are owed.
You're telling me that not everybody is up eating a gallon-sized bowl of Cap'n Crunch baked off their ass and contemplating the existential crises of life. It's just me and Rob Thomas. Though that woman's clock has been stuck on 3 for days and days. She's always lonely. 3 a.m. by Matchbox 20 is a ballad of despair and sadness. And the clock on the wall has been stuck at 3 for days and days.
Is that a metaphorical song, or is he serious in that song? I don't know the lyrics well enough to know.
I guess we could. You know what? This is a beautiful pin to pop in because I want to get something out of the way. And as soon as it starts, you'll understand why. I just want to get it out of the way before we do the show proper. So without any further ado, I said it'd get better every week. I'm not sure if it's going to be better since last week, but we're recapping Suits LA. It could be a one and done, and that's all we'll say. But if it gets renewed, we're going to keep on doing it. It Suits LA on the Say Report. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. 16 minutes are on my clock. We're recapping episode 2 of Suits LA. I fucking hated it. The second episode of Suits LA was so fucking weak. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
I don't want to be that guy. But, I watched it with such excitement after the first episode, and then the second, I'm like, ugh. And then I rewatched it at double speed, as I'm going to be doing before we record every week. And I'm like, yeah, man, nothing fucking happened in this episode. And
did it feel like it was like filler? You know how we often talk about how sometimes by episode 3 or 4 they do like full on reboots of shows sometimes,
yeah.
Or sometimes the second episode. But did it feel like it was like we're just biding our time while we figure out what to do with these characters, or was it like? It's just wild to me that in your very second episode you have a filler episode.
Yeah, so I think what we're seeing, right? Because initially Suits LA was going to be straight to Peacock streaming. And I imagine at the time that it was being developed initially, it was going to be one of those we're dropping the full fucking season style streaming shows, right?
I see.
Because we need to see, while I do this, Elizabeth, can you see when Suits LA was greenlit? Like when it was announced initially? Because that's really what it feels like. It feels like this is an episode to move the pieces forward. This is a filler episode is what you call it, but a filler episode as your second episode is more forgivable if your first episode is as good as the first episode of Suits LA was. I will still stand by that was a fucking fantastic first episode of this series. So then the second episode, all right, we need to slow it down a little bit. We give you guys a lot to eat that first episode. This is one where you're able to digest it. We get to explore the characters a little bit, dynamics that we hadn't yet seen. Specifically, the big one is his name is not Lewis. It's Josh McDermott's character, Stuart and Samantha working together. And the fact that, that's the biggest thing that we see is we actually get to see Stuart and Samantha's now merged law firm. And the fact that even though they're the named partners, they are not really partners yet.
So it looks like Suits LA was officially given the order in July of 2024.
Oh, wow. So that's crazy, too. So then, that gives a lot less legs to my theory that they plan to drop this as a whole thing. Because by you said 2022? I thought you said 2024.
No, I did say 2022.
Oh, okay. I don't know why my head was no, 2022. Yeah, because
it looks like maybe there was some cast announcements before that, but I'm looking at an NBC Suits LA officially given series order at NBC posted on July of 2024. July. It was updated on the 19th of September 19th. So it was, but it was July 19th is when it was originally posted.
Okay, that's cool. I really do like when they update news stories every 3 months so that we have all the information. So good on you, that website.
It was NBC. It's just
it's just NBC's website. All right. But that's the thing. So that leaves it even more in question because by that time they had really swapped over to we're going to do a new episode each week, or the Netflix plan of here's 5 episodes as part A of season 6. We'll give you another 5 in like 4 to 6 months. So I don't know, but it does really feel like the way that Aaron Korsh was writing this, honestly, it didn't even feel like it was by the same writer. It felt like the pilot was written by Aaron Korsh, and then by episode 2, we're going to offload it to somebody else, but he's the only writing credit on the episode. And it is. The big thing that we see in it is that Stuart and Samantha, even though they're now partners at this law firm, are clearly not on even footing as partners because Samantha is swinging her frickin' lawyer stick around to be like, Stuart, I made a deal with you and you fucked me over. And Stuart, like, coming to her groveling, like, I did fuck you over and I'm sorry about that. No need to glaze me, bro. I'm probably not using that correctly. Like, that was, like, the stuff that, like, kind of was compelling, but also was, like, this could have been a B plot with a more exciting A plot. The A plot of this episode is Erica and Rick fighting for the Dylan Pryor, Victoria Justice's character, and there were, like, no teeth to any of that. And also the reveal that that thing that we used to do that we stopped doing, it was fucking, right? Or I guess philandering. It's still an F sound. Jesus.
What? Wait, what?
Stuart, when he's like, you two, I watched you two work on the same floor for years. It was going to end in one of two things, and both of them start with F.
Yeah.
Fight or philander, which I know is a PH, but it has the F sound. Like, oh my God. It felt like the Suits LA pilot was written when Aaron Korsh was writing Suits proper, and like, so he was energized and connected to it and very excited. And then episode 2 felt like, oh shit, NBC finally bought this series. I gotta get back into this fucking headspace.
Well, I mean, I feel like maybe this is the other side of that coin that we always talk about then, right? Like, as I mentioned earlier, that idea that the second episode is where you really start to see what the show is actually going to do, because by that point, characters have now been plotted out, things have been purchased, and like thoughts, plans have been made, that kind of thing. And so, we often talk about that in the context of how they usually use that as an opportunity to really like beef up the show and really make whatever, major changes they can ASAP and all that. But I mean, the other side of that is also the danger of this is when you can also see if a show is going to be able to stand on its own. One episode does not a great show make. It's often, we talk about what are the 4-episode test and stuff like that. So maybe it's just, maybe there's some cracks in the wall here.
Well, and again, I really feel like this was probably planned and scripted. Like, if I were Aaron Korsh and I was told you're getting 13 episodes on Peacock, I would believe, since I can't think of another Peacock original that did not drop everything all in one go. I can't think of a Peacock original series, which this was originally, but it is not now. Now it is being broadcast on USA Network. But it was a streaming series, and Peacock's MO for all their streaming series up to this point, which I mean, guess that's technically not even wrong to say, because their streaming series do still drop all at once. Like, was the whole series is going to drop at one go. So you can have a second episode that's a little, like, after the big reveal that the brother that Ted Black has been talking to the whole time in the first episode is a freaking ghost. You have an episode where, like, okay, now just like normal lawyer stuff. We see how fucking boring entertainment law is. Because let me tell you, the entertainment law section of this, boring. Something very difficult to believe. First of all, don't you love when you go to a comedy club and the MC has to tell you who the impersonator is impersonating to make sure you're getting the joke? Because that was one of the worst. As somebody who's like worked as an MC in a comedy club. One of the worst, like, intros for a comedian ever. Like, I can say that. I can literally say that. Like, coming to the stage now, Mark Wahlberg, Christopher Walken, and Denzel Washington, hands together for Sam's client. I don't remember Sam's client's name. I'm sorry. But no, if he's an impersonator, he comes out and you get the impersonations. You shouldn't need a cheat sheet to understand who he's doing. And also, it's a little... should you be doing Denzel Washington? I know it's 2010 and the world is different now in 2025, but that just seemed a little strange. But like that, like Ted felt like a non-part of this episode. Though I'm sure you're elated right now. I'm sure you're sitting there in front of your microphone with nothing but elation because the second episode of Suits LA, though the photo did appear in the first episode, told us why this is a Suits show. So within 2 episodes, your question has been answered. And it's that Ted Black, the federal prosecutor, used to play like pick 'em up softball on the same team as Harvey Specter from Suits OG. Which is not what we're going to be calling it. It's just I'm used to having 2 syllables after Suits now. I'm weaning myself off of it.
Yeah, and there's rumors of stuff that are going to start kind of overlapping, supposedly, but I don't know. I mean, that's going to depend a lot on the success of Suits LA to get to that point, right?
Yes. But, I mean, the Lester Thomas case, we found out that he was lying. Yeah, we all kind of knew that Lester Thompson was lying. It was just going to be, when are you going to drop the other foot? Huge shout outs, huge accolades to Sophia Pernis showing up as the prosecutor. You've seen her in things like Blood and Treasure. She also is an amazing reoccurring additional tracker on Tracker, which I have not watched an episode since the Disciple episode. Because it was so fucking terrible.
Because it got weird.
It got like a little too weird. Like aliens and cults and women who can actually use healing powers to bring the tracker back to life. I'm on board for that, but like it turned out to like a full-on serial killer show movie that, and from nowhere. Like it should have been a slow burn, The Hunt for the Teacher and his disciples, and like, nope, we introduced it last episode, we made you wait 3 months, now you go. But we're getting off of Suits LA. Things that I will celebrate about this episode, really love Ted and Kevin's relationship. Kevin being the investigator that he had priorly worked with in New York, coming in. It's really good to have a super confident character like a Harvey Specter in Ted Black, but it's even better to have somebody who calls him on his bullshit. And it's not somebody like Mike Ross would call Harvey on his bullshit all the time, but Mike didn't really have a foot to stand on because he was pretending to be a lawyer.
Right.
Like, oh, aren't you Mr. Moral Compass fucking lying about having a law degree from Harvard?
I mean, to be fair, that was kind of the whole like plot of the show was the two of them both equally calling each other shit out and also at the same time being,
morally
being kind
gray.
of unscrupulous.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm saying that. But Kevin, we haven't seen like Kevin in every moment so far in this series has been calling out Ted on his shit. Like, we can't like pretend that this guy's not dead, right? Like we can't take up this hospital room. We can't have doctors working on him as if he is not. He's dead. It's not like he's in a coma and he's just brain dead and they're keeping him alive. He's a corpse sitting in a hospital as a prop. That's fucked up. And Kevin calls him out and he's like, we can't do this. And so we've not seen his moral flaw. And I hope we never do. I hope that Kevin gets to be this clean character in the show so that we have someone with scruples.
Yeah, but you know there'll be some episode and it'll be something. Maybe we'll find out he's like an alcoholic or something.
Right. Oh, that's always the go-to too. He's addicted to pills. Pills are the big thing that they're trying to scare us with in the media now. Jeez.
I mean, that's been the thing since House, so like that's fine. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess fentanyl's the big one, right? And you
Fentanyl's,
can't.
yeah,
Yeah,
fentanyl's definitely the hot button word right now.
yeah. For in everybody's mouth, even our presidents. But yeah, so that whole part of the story, like they were doing a lot of table setting for the Ted stuff, introducing who the prosecutor's going to be, introducing that Amanda Stevens has history with Sophia Pernis's character. I don't know Sophia Pernis's character. I'm still calling her Old Man Hanrahan, which is the title of the episode, because that's what I was told her name was going to be. And then she like kind of brief told us her name, but at the same time, it's more fun to just keep referring to her as Old Man Hanrahan. I know it's wrong, but you know, it's better than referring to her as the actor from Blood and Treasure. like I'll use just her real name, Sophia Pernis, because she's great. She is great. And if you were a fan of Blood and Treasure, she's out there and she's working and proving that she's one hell of an actor. And the Dylan Pryor stuff, I don't know how I feel about, like, oh, she's got this big deal with with Warner Brothers, and she's gonna be in this indie to her friend, and there's only 5 scenes, and then they find out that she's gonna have like a huge Q factor, right? That her IMDb popularity is going up, so they add 35 more scenes to the script. Like, fuck you. And we don't get to see any of that stuff. It's just, it's like it's written by somebody who doesn't understand the entertainment business, which is crazy because Aaron Korsh has been in the entertainment business for at least 15 years.
Yeah.
Going back to the original Suits.
Well, I wonder if some of it is like hyperbole, like him, like actually, you know, not ripped from the headlines, but essentially, right? Like writing stories of things that he has actually dealt with. Maybe he has a story of a script where this happened.
Right.
Maybe Stephen Amell was never supposed to be in this show.
Yeah. Stephen Amell was just going to be in the first episode. He was going to be the ghost. And then once it got picked up for Peacock streaming, it's like, I've written you into every episode. We've added another person to play the
every
ghost.
episode. Sorry.
I mean, there's a real good chance that it's just, it felt so strange. And then the other thing of Erica Rollins not liking movies or television, why the fuck do you want to work in entertainment law then? What is the draw there? Like, I have no idea why you would want to work with entertainment if you're not entertained by it. Like like, yeah, no, Rick probably should have been the head of entertainment. And not just because he earned it for everything he did for Ted, but he actually likes entertainment. And I have to be honest, in my lawyer, I want some passion about what they're working on, right? It's not like at law school one day they pass out your specialty and that's what you get and you don't get upset. It's not fucking Futurama. Oh, sorry. So there's our 16 minutes. It's kind of a nothing burger of an episode as a TLDL. But I'm still going to keep watching because, as Sejohn said, the 4-episode test is important. Let's talk about something like The Hunting Party. Are you watching The Hunting Party at all, Sejohn? Are you familiar with
no. It? Yeah, The Hunting Party is another serial killer show, isn't it?
It's kind of like The Blacklist. If all the people on The Blacklist had been in a secret facility where everybody was believed to be dead, and then there was a jailbreak from this secret underground facility that just kind of looks like the Bureau of Normalcy from Doom Patrol. Like I keep expecting
I was thinking
there to be butts.
Well, I was thinking of what's the prison in the MCU that they keep
The
using,
Raft.
that they keep. The Raft, yeah, that was my thought was it was something like, kind of like the Raft that basically
more
gets
high tech. That's the difference. The thing I've always liked about the Bureau of Normalcy facility is just how low tech it is. And the second episode, like I'm just like, this is literally the set from Doom Patrol. Convince me otherwise. If it's not the same one, then they hired the same like scenic decorator and designer to construct it. That second episode, I'm not 4 episodes into The Hunting Party, so I shouldn't talk about it yet, but the second episode really it didn't rub me the wrong way. It was just, if this is where you guys are going with the series, you need to fucking commit to it. And they did. Because there's sort of like an X-Files little mystery there. Because all these people who are held in the facility, they're believed to be dead, right? Like, they were executed, and then we kept them down there to basically experiment on them so that we could minority report and find serial killers before they kill people. They don't say what they do with those individuals yet. I don't know if they're eliminating them or putting them in the pit or something. But they're like, yeah, it's a lot of psychological stuff that we find out. And we can we can identify serial killers before they start killing now. Which is just an insane thing to say in a show.
Oh,
like
yeah,
this.
future crime.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, nothing better than supporting thought crime, huh?
Yeah. But what it turned out in the second episode is that the guy, his like psychiatrist that was assigned to him, like fell in love with him in like a fatherly way. So like he was specifically trying to find ways to appeal to the psychopathy within him that like would satisfy his urges but make it so he didn't want to do it. And then it finds out, oh no, like he fucking drove him once he escaped to commit the crimes. He basically was mapping out the crimes for him to commit. And then the third, so I was like, this is weird. Like, we need to not trust anybody in the pit or what the pit was doing. So literally, like, Bex and her team are the only people on the show we can trust. And I definitely don't trust, like, the guard who was in the pit at all, which I hate, because I'd like it if these three are the, like, beacons on the show. But then the third episode was so fucking good, where I'm like,
nice.
Because they committed to it. They have committed to the fact that, like, you should not trust the prisoners or the wardens in this particular world.
Much like X-Files, it's also very Monster of the Week, right?
Yeah,
like they're going after a different person, or like you said earlier, Blacklist, right? Like they're going after a specific person each week.
They're going after a specific
with like an overarching
escapee.
story.
A little bit of Breakout Kings in there as well, because you got like the martial stuff, and I love Breakout Kings. I don't know if the series has the legs. Again, I haven't watched the fourth episode, but the third episode in the first 7 minutes subverted expectations, which was excellent, and then the experimentation that was being done on the killer was insane. Like legitimately, not the type of thing where if they were to get out, you have taken a monster and turned them into super monster. You just gave them the 7 emeralds, the chaos emeralds, and they about to go till their rings run out, baby. Like, and it's real interesting, but you're right. Like 4 episodes is necessary, and we're going to do that to Suits LA. Also, Dr. Odyssey came back, but it's a 2-parter, and I'm waiting for the second part to watch it, because I will just be absorbed by Dr. Odyssey, and I can't let that happen. I couldn't sit here talking about half an episode of Dr. Odyssey. Like, I've already said it too many times, and I'm not going to talk about it.
If you invoke it anymore, Joshua Jackson's going to think he's a guest star on the show, so please don't.
Joshua Jackson is always a guest star on the Say Report. It's like that chair for Elijah. We have a chair for Joshua Jackson. Come join us, Charlie Banks. Perry. No, Pacey was his name. In Dawson's Creek.
Perry.
Perry's the platypus.
Now I'm just imagining Dawson's Creek with Perry the platypus on it.
I don't know, Perry. I don't know if Katie Holmes likes me. I don't know Katie Holmes' character's name, clearly. I don't know a lot about Dawson's Creek except for the theme song. But yeah, so we got the suits out of the way because there are other fun things to talk about. I guess we're going to start with Sejohn. Did you get a chance to play the Phantom demo?
I took a look at it, and I don't know if I'm interested.
Yeah, that's why I played. I mean, we love the Phantom here at the Say Report.
Spoilers,
yes. We're doing a Phantom
episode. It's definitely not the subject matter that has me turned off and why I didn't touch it yet. I want you to sell me on it, essentially.
Oh, I can't. I can't sell you on it, and that is... Like, I feel really bad. Like, as my boy Ricardo Villano, the Flying Kick, he worked on the game to make the game better. He's like a guy who knows beat-em-ups and understands it. It's one of the most miserable beat-em-up experiences I've ever had. And where I'm sitting at, where my life leads right now, is it just because it's the demo? Like, will the final build be better? And then the other voice in my head, I have like 17 people in my head on this game, just as a heads up. The other voice in my head is, it's the demo. If it should be better than the actual game, right? This is what people who are on the fence, right? Like a Sejohn, right? Sejohn is the target audience for the demo. Because you look at the game and you're like, I like the Phantom, but I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I enjoy what's on display.
Right. Yeah. And so you want to get your hands on it, and you want to, it's because video games have a unique sense of like interaction to them that other forms of media don't, right? You do listen to music, you do watch movies and TV, but there's something about the ways in which you interact with video games that means that if they're going to truly sell you on something, like put a proper trailer out, as it were, for music industries, you put a single out to sell a CD, although that's not so true anymore, but in concept, right? And then like for movies and TV, you put trailers out so that people get a taste of what they're going to see, or even with TV, you might even do the pilot episode months in advance from when the series actually comes out or something, or put it on with like a special event night or something, right? But what do you do with video games? You have to get them into people's hands. You have to demo them. It's part of the reason that I think that it was so hard for me to get into games in like the 2000 to 2010 era, was that demos started to slowly kind of die off, or they had to be like, you had to be paying for them. There was a lot of video games that started the whole like buy in for early access stuff, that kind of shit. And like I stopped getting into new games because I stopped having demos showing me what they were like when you played them. You couldn't walk into Walmart and walk up to a machine anymore. You couldn't download a demo from the store. You couldn't, I'm glad to see more and more of them are coming back now. But yeah, so back to the Phantom. I didn't even bother with the demo at the moment because it's already not my style of game. It already didn't look like it was a good version of this style of game. So I was hoping that there was something that I was missing in terms of like a hook or something like that.
No, I mean, so it's a beat 'em up. So like everybody kind of fell in love with beat 'em ups again after Shredder's Revenge. They were clearly existing, right? Dale and I had our adventures with River City Girls. Streets of Rage 4 had happened. So beat 'em ups were not a dead genre. They were a silent genre. And the volume has definitely been cranked up after the success of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. I actually think somewhat to the like genre's detriment, where
it's always to the genre. Yeah.
Yeah.
This happens, I think, with every. No, I think this happens with every genre, everything that hits, especially in video games, is that a game hits and then 20,000 more games come out trying to emulate it, and eventually it floods the market, and that genre or that style of game becomes kind of dead in the water because of it. I think that is the cycle of indie gaming right now that you're talking about.
Yeah. But specifically with licensed games as well, because Toxic Crusaders has a beat 'em up coming. G.I. Joe had that like Wrath of Cobra game that was fucking terrible. That even though they've like patched it and had people work on it, I tried replaying it and I'm like, no, this game is just too bad for me to dedicate any more time to. What's it? So the Phantom, the Power Rangers game that came released in basically an unplayable state. Until they just patched it to make it playable. The Phantom, the Phantom has existed since like the 1930s? He's one of the original pulp comic heroes. So like...
Wasn't there also a radio show, or was that just like The Shadow?
The Shadow is the bigger one. Let me look up Lee Falk's The Phantom, and we'll get an actual...
I remember it being serialized at some point. There was definitely at some point a serial version of it, and I don't know if it was a visual one like in theaters or if it was a radio one. But the Phantom has a long history with people in the pulp world, right? Like as in comics and books and all that. It's a classic.
Yeah, it is a classic. 1936 is when the first adventure comic strip was published. February of 1936. I don't see newspaper strips internationally. It's always been a comic strip until like the 90s, when a lot of these things went into the public domain, right? So there was no
Until they
licensing on
did
it.
the movie with Billy Zane.
Yeah,
Then,
so then they do the Billy Zane movie. You get Phantom 2040, the one set in the future. So it's the great-great-grandson of the original Phantom living in a future world. Like, that's a game that I played. I bought that when a rental store nearby was closing for my Sega Genesis. And the
there was
worst
a
part
TV show to go along with that one,
there
right?
was a TV show on that one as well. But it was one of those TV shows that it was syndicated and it never aired at the same time. And then whenever I ended up catching an episode of it, it happened to be the same episode I had already seen.
It was like a filler when like something ran over in the morning or something.
Yeah. And I mean,
Saturday morning cartoons can't start quite yet. Let's throw Phantom
let's just throw
2040
the
on.
Phantom on, yeah. So yeah, animated series Defenders of the Earth he was a part of. A live action serial entitled The Phantom was released in 1943.
1943, okay.
Yeah, but he was never radio. He's always had animated adaptations or film adaptations. Apparently, there was a live action miniseries released on Sci-Fi in 2009, starring Ryan Carnes as the 22nd Phantom that I've never seen. There's 2 episodes. I don't know if that's a miniseries so much as a TV movie cut up into 2 airings. It's a total of 3 hours. I'd be very interested. I love the Phantom. So seeing that there's a game, and beat 'em ups are a genre that I do really enjoy. And I'm like, but I don't want to jump in right now because the look of it is not appealing. Like they're trying to do that sort of comic art with it, and that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work. Cuphead unfortunately set a very high bar for like aping an earlier style, and that's what it looked like. So then when there was a demo, I'm like, I'm gonna give it a try, and I didn't get off of the first screen, and it wasn't because it was hard, it was because it was not fun to play. But then they announced that they updated it, and I'm like, okay, cool, let's go for it. Let's give it a try. Which also weird thing, like Tom DePaul, who's been writing since Falk's death in 1999, not mentioned anywhere in the credits of this at all. So I'm like, who's involved in this? It's a little weird that you wouldn't go to the guy who's been writing the character for at least 25 years.
Yeah.
I know you guys want to write your own story.
I just sent you a picture, by the way, of the 2009 Phantom, just so that you get an idea. It was supposed to be a pilot for a show. I think that's where you're getting thrown, and it didn't get picked up. So essentially, they put it out as like a 2-episode.
I like
movie.
that he kind of looks like a hockey player with that half visor.
Well, but then also has like a weird like ill-fitting hood on. I don't understand why the hood has such a weird shape. I don't know, but yeah,
tight.
we should check it out sometime. But yeah, the Phantom has had a lot of swings. There have been some of them have been some heavy swings. I mean, you don't get Billy Zane.
Billy Zane, a year before Titanic, literally at the top of his game. And I can't. That's what spoilers for Ninjativity, 2026. There's going to be the Phantom. Because I can't think of any other, like, ninja movies from 1996.
I think there's a fair argument to be made about the evolution of the ninja adventure film into movies like The Phantom.
Yeah, especially with what they were, like, borrowing from. And it fits in line with the Batman. That's what we're doing. Just letting everybody know. Ninjativity this year, we're definitely doing 3 Ninjas Knuckle Up and a surprise. You know what? I've already mentioned them. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie from 1995 is also going to be part of Ninjativity, since I just talked about Rita's Rewind, right? Like, beat 'em ups, like, they're all connected, right? Toxic Crusaders getting a game. The Toxic Avenger movie, the blacklisted, I don't know when we're ever going to do it, was given a release date of October 2025. So, like, happy birthday, Sejohn,
preview,
right?
the preview mysteriously made its way to the internet a couple of weeks back, but as a lost media. Like it was posted as, here is the preview for the movie we'll never see. But then all of a sudden there was all this rumors about a release date. So now,
and we're gonna that's a good segue there to talk about lost media. But I just want to finish up on this, especially since you didn't play the game. I finished the demo today because I'm doing it for the show. It's a fairly standard beat 'em up. Hit detection is not great. Eventually I got into a bit of a groove, but overall, the game needs to move a little bit faster. The controls need to be a little bit tighter, and
But
just
what is its thing? What is it bringing to the table that other beat 'em ups have not done?
the
Right? Like that's
Phantom
my question.
license. Like,
Yeah,
I
seems
guess
to
you
be
know
the
what?
big
That's
thing.
not true. What it brings to the table, there's a really interesting mechanic in the game where if you hit the R1 button, or so the R button, not the trigger, the shoulder button, he pulls out his pistols, which makes sense because that's a big part of the Phantom, is that he also uses his guns, right? Like gun kata did not exist as a term, but one of the earliest examples of gun kata would be the Phantom. Like using guns as not only projectile weapons, but also melee weapons and seamlessly blending it together. Think like a John Wick. So that's a really cool mechanic in the game, is that you can use his guns, and there's an ammo system related to it, and so you need to be picking up ammo if you want to use the guns. But was that?
Yes, that is something I can maybe get behind and maybe try and hang my hat on. But like the big thing with Ninja Turtles, the reason why I think that it owes a ton of its success to the fact that the multiplayer on it was just exceptional. The online aspect to it, the number of people that could be playing, it was above par on everything with the online, and like that was what it brought to the table that others have just not even been able to replicate since. And that's the big thing, is that people seem to forget that part, is like they're like, oh, let's have a game like the Ninja Turtles game so that we can make our money off of it too, but like then don't put the effort in to do anything unique like the game that they're emulating did.
Yeah, I will say this. It's not a Superman the Arcade game situation, which, come to find out later in life, the second player is Shazam. But as a kid, we all like, oh, you get to play as Blue Superman or Red Superman. And not like Blue and Red Superman where he gets split and then one has electric powers and one has fire powers. Like, it literally just looks like the Superman model, but his suit is red. And then come to find out later that, like, the Punisher game, where player 1 is Punisher and player 2 is Nick Fury, player 1 is Superman, they just did a very shit job of relating to the players that player 2 was meant to be Shazam. Like, I don't know why you would do that. I think it's probably because in the 90s, the Shazam name, like, he was Captain Marvel originally, so my guess is that. But yeah. It's weird. So it's not that. There is a second player. There is multiplayer in the game. So that's exciting. But the second player is Diana. So Kit Harington's eventual wife, which is fine. I'm all about it. But she's not the Phantom. Like, I just sent.
I was
going to
say, is she known for for having abilities of any kind?
She's an adventurer. Like, she can fight, she can hold her own and things like that. But yeah, it's one of those situations where, okay, Diana,
why not make it another Phantom? Why not make it a story where there's at a time when there's two of them? Because that can happen.
Yeah, like that's the whole beauty of. I mean, and technically there is a second Phantom in the fact that Kit and Diana have had their child. So, and one of the things is that their child has been abducted. That's the whole of it, is that Kit Harington, I believe the third, and Diana are trying to fight the Sing pirates who have abducted their child. Like, that's the whole bit of the game. I also just sent you a photo of Shazam from that game, and yeah,
that's not Shazam. That's Superman. He's got a big old ass on his shirt.
I think it's supposed to be a lightning bolt. They did what they could, right? The 90s were a hard time. And Diana, she is not, like, she's literally just a palette swap of the Phantom, which is a little disappointing. Like, it's they and the other thing that it brings to it, because I will give it this, and this is probably from the fact that, like, the flying kick worked on it, there is charge attacks, which is really the like realm of something like Streets of Rage, where if you hold the punch button, you'll do a different attack. Both of them have those. Though weirdly, for Diana, her charge heavy attack, which is her kicking, is a punch, and her charge punch attack is a kick. I don't get it. I just don't
Yeah,
understand.
just for clarification, though, you don't mean that she is literally just a color swap
No, no, no.
of the Phantom.
She
Yeah.
is a full
She is her own
drawn out.
character sprite, right?
Yeah,
It's just that it's in terms of play, it's the same. Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Like I'm thinking about things like Streets of Rage, right? Axel and Blaze play very differently from each other. River
Right.
City Girls, Kyoko and Masako, very different move sets. Like combos are similar, but how they move and the speed of them, it doesn't feel like you're just playing as the same character. There was nothing uniquely different about playing as Diana, other than the fact that the Phantom summons a wolf, she summons a falcon or a hawk. I wasn't able to determine what type of bird it was, but it's one of those two birds of prey, and she summons them and they come in and they attack, whereas the Phantom whistles and his wolf comes out and attacks. The third level is the only semi-unique level, but it's very clearly like still in almost alpha stages in the demo. You ride on Hero, which is the name of Phantom's horse, and you should shoot the gun, and if you hold the top button of the facepad buttons, you aim upwards, and if you hold the bottom button, you aim downwards. The hero cannot jump, so the whole thing is maneuvering to avoid obstacles or get pickups. You can't jump over anything. And it's a fight against a pirate who's in like a cargo plane that's trying to escape. And the only way to damage him is to shoot the things that he throws. And then like if you shoot the crate, the pieces of the crate go flying back and they hit him. And those do damage to him. So that's like another unique sort of level. But it's very difficult to aim and shoot because it's the west button. So you're square, X, Y, depending on what you're playing as. Really, I'm trying to use like north, south, east, and west for buttons now whenever I talk to people, because of people who like the A button is not the same for me. Like, I get it. I understand. Let us try to find some common ground. So it's a little difficult to do that, but you can also shoot with the right trigger button. Oh, it's the left trigger. I'm sorry, that pulls out the guns. I'm not holding a controller in my hand. I threw myself off. You can shoot with the trigger when you have the guns out, which is cool, because then it's like you're the Phantom and you're pulling the trigger of the gun. But like, it never tells you that in the game. There's not like a tutorial that guns can also be fired with the trigger buttons. So as just a fun thing that I found out, and it made that area of the game much, much better to play, tighter to play. But yeah, even Diana, like the Phantom is known for his two fucking guns. She has a revolver. And the worst part about the gunplay is that they don't do any like extra damage. It feels like it does the same damage, but from a distance. But then there is a mechanic system. And again, like all of this is stuff that I've learned from playing the demo. There's never a moment where they like kind of walk you through it. If you kill somebody using the gun, then you kill them and you get like a red Phantom token. And then when you finish the level, you get a multiplier for how many red Phantom tokens you have. And it's not like it's a pickup that you need to pick up. It's just you have a red like counter next to your character name and it goes up. Which,
interesting.
That's the final thing that I will complain about. I hate this in video games. Do not make pickups a separate button. I hate that. Like the fact that I can't just walk over money and collect the money. I can't just walk over the health and collect the health. You have to hit the east button on the gamepad in order to duck down and pick up items. And that is such a weird like interruption of flow.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a leftover thing in beat 'em up specifically from games. I don't know if the Phantom is going to have this, but having interactable like weapons and stuff on screen and like the ability to choose to not pick it up, right?
Right.
Because there's some of these that you can run around and grab things and depending on if you grab them or not is what happens next, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like in The Simpsons when there's all sorts of different silly ass weapons you can pick up in the world. So I think that that's probably the like where that comes from. I don't know if this game utilizes a system like that that justifies that. But yeah, auto pickup is a blessing, man. I as somebody that's been replaying the Borderlands series, when they eventually got smart in the second game and introduced the auto pickup stuff, it was a much better experience.
Yeah. So I mean, there are like you can pick up tree branches and use them as weapons. I'm fine if for weapons I need to stop and pick it up. But then, like the money on the ground, why do I gotta stop and pick that up?
Yeah.
Ammo,
Yeah.
I'm like even the ammo, I kind of get why you're doing it because you're saying that weapons you are sacrificing a little bit of time. There's a bit of a penalty, but there shouldn't be that penalty for pickups, right? Like the money doesn't do anything except for add to your score. So, like, what am I supposed to do with it? Unless there's a shop mechanic later on, but that would be weird, right? We know you're the Phantom. You're the rich white knight hero of our small African island, but you need to pay us money that you steal from the pirates so you can get upgrades. I don't know. So I'm not surprised that you didn't play it because it does not look appealing. And then I'm disappointed to report that it's really not appealing, especially because it comes out on Wednesday. Like, I thought that it was a demo to, like, try to gauge interest and things like that as part of Steam Next Fest. No, this game releases 2 days after we release this episode. 2 days after Mario Day. Day? And I honestly don't think I'm going to pick it up. And, like, I love the Phantom. And I love beat 'em ups. Like, these are the things. But I've just been like, so it goes back to, I've been trying to think gaming wise. I used to be like completely fine buying a game kind of sight unseen on release date so that I could give it a try. But that all changed with Deathloop. Remember, Deathloop came out September 14th, 2021, and it looked like it was going to be awesome. And then it kind of sucked.
It was an acquired taste, it turns out. Yes, there are people that very much love that game. Like, I think we'd be remiss to not point out that that game does have a fan base. But yeah, it did not light up the industry like they kind of were making it out like it was gonna.
Yeah, I don't know. And then I was reminded of Deathloop going through like the games, and I'm like, oh, that was the day it changed for me. That was the day when I became a lot more discerning with video games, and turns out that being discerning with video games kind of means I play a lot less of them. We also got to attribute to the fact that like Redbox stopping renting video games was also a pretty big contributor to that. I wouldn't have played Resident Evil 2 Remake if not for Redbox. And then I rented it and I bought it because of how much I loved that game. And I've bought every Resident Evil game since its release, pretty much sight unseen, because of how fucking good Resident Evil 2 Remake was. And I would have never touched it if I couldn't have rented it from Redbox. So it's a good thing that demos are coming back because you get to try stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've tried Ruffy and the Riverside. They dropped a demo for Steam Next Fest.
I don't even know. That's
all right,
a new one to me.
this is as much as I'm a little disappointed you didn't play the Phantom, you will be disappointed if you don't give Ruffy and the Riverside a try. Download the demo. When we're done recording, download the demo and give it a try. Because I looked at it and I'm like, this looks like gross, but it's a demo. I'll try it. The mechanic that it adds is super awesome. It's like a 3D collectathon is what I would compare it to. There's actually a room in the demo where it's carved in the wall, Banjo was here. So they are wearing their influence right on their sleeve. I loved it. My time with the demo,
How do you spell it?
Ruffy.
Okay.
And the Riverside. And there's a demo up. It has its own page. Sejohn, you'll be doing yourself a disservice. And listeners, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you have Steam and you don't give the demo a try while it is available during Next Fest. Because it is the type of game I think I've been looking for, and I didn't even know it.
Oh, I think this has a really cool look to it. You don't like the art style?
I'll admit it. I was once bitten, twice shy by something like Yooka-Laylee.
Sure.
So
No, in terms of gameplay, I'm talking about the art style, though.
Oh, the art style was something like that's what caught my eye. And then when I saw what the game was, I'm like,
for anybody that's interested, it's very Paper Mario, and very specifically very Paper Mario and the Origami King. So there's like a 3D environment that you're running around, but it looks like you are a 2D sprite, which is pretty rad. Yeah. It's got a really good flow to it. This is great. Yeah, I'll definitely check this out.
Definitely check that out.
See, this gets me. This is a good. This I understand. I see the appeal pretty immediately.
Yeah, and so that's like
the spooky ghosts.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Tomba too. Tomba being he's 3D interacting in a 2D environment.
Oh, it is straight up stealing some Mario Galaxy influence too, with some of the jump into the wall effects and shit like that. Yeah. Okay,
so all right. There's some fun stuff there. I think you'd enjoy that one, and you'd be disappointed if you missed out while the demo's available. So I don't know how long the demo's going to be available. The game is coming out in April, but it was one of those where it looked really good, and then I'm like, but it's a 3D collectathon. I really have found later in life that I'm not as into that as I was when I was a kid. And that the reason I was into it was because they were kind of the only style of game in town. But now if I wait a week, I'll probably get a new Metroidvania, or I'll probably get a new 2D platformer that doesn't introduce the third axis, which seems to be the axis I have a problem with. I'll admit that. But that one, oh God, I'm just going to play for a little bit, and then I ended up completing the demo. And
nice.
Oh, okay. So that's good. And I had far more fun with it. I did that this morning, too. So I did the Phantom demo, and then I'm like, let's try this one since I'm in demo mode. And I really, really liked that one. Nice. So that's something to talk about. Sejohn, did you go back to Monolith, a.k.a. Star of Providence?
Star of Providence. Yeah, it is Star of Providence in my shit now.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, for a little bit, I mean, it's wild to me that they did the rebrand. I don't know. Is it weird?
The reason that they said they changed the name was for better market recognition. That Monolith was a little bit too generic a title, and it didn't really describe what the game was. And that Star of Providence also kind of like, I don't know what the fuck is Star of Providence, but more that you would go deeper looking into it to figure out what it is.
Right. Monolith sounds very generic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will admit that. Yeah, sure. But no, fantastic. Little top down shooter bullet hell. For anybody that's played it, I don't know if Dev is gonna fully get the reference, but there is a what's the name of the game in the arcade in Stardew Valley? But there's a game in there that you play that is very much this, where you're a little the aesthetic is that you're a little Western dude running around fighting zombies and Western zombies, but it's very much in that same vein of it's basically one screen that you're basically trying to stay safe on while you destroy whatever's on screen. But then there's this really cool movement between screens that I really like too, that adds to the whole thing.
Yeah. So I don't know that I didn't think I was going to play Star of Providence. I'll be honest with you. I liked Animal Well until the mystery got a little too deep for me, but I did on day one, Animal Well, I was telling everybody to play it. Donkey, he knows good games, right? Everyone was all upset, why is a YouTuber starting a really not even a production company, but a distribution company, a game distributor.
That's a stupid complaint.
Yeah.
Because I think that more YouTubers do need to put their money where their mouth is. I think that there's a lot of people that have some very interesting opinions about games for a bunch of people that don't understand the process. And it's not that we can't talk about the value of, what it is once it gets to you, once the product gets to you. But we live in that type of, in that world now, right? It's a postmodern society of, we also want the process as part of the art. And so I think more YouTubers need to get involved in the fronting of gaming to talk more about what games actually are doing. I think there's always going to be a place for people that don't do that, but I think we need a good handful of people that do to balance out some of the information that's out there about things.
Yeah, it was so weird that everybody's like, this is crazy. And so far, the two games that he has released under the Big Mode studio brand have been accepted really well. And like, but the
Yeah.
weird one is that this one is that like Monolith was a game, D13, just 4 guys across the world developing this game, like just for fun over a couple of years. And Monolith, I guess not a lot of people really knew about it, right? Sejohn got it probably because it was either on sale or I know that you're a big fan of Binding of Isaac. That's all I can think of is why you'd like go for a game like Monolith. And then it was weird when it was announced that Star of Providence is coming to Switch in February of 2025, and Monolith got changed to Star of Providence, but it was still just the original game, which I think was only 3 floors long, because there's a joke in the game.
I think I got it in a Humble Bundle is where it came from, and the point of it was that it was like a tiny game.
Right, because the cat guy says the 4th floor, the bellows, is where things really start to heat up. The first 3 levels would just be like a demo. And it's like, oh, that's kind of clever. Because is that what the game was before? And you added all this other stuff to it. And really, it's an evolving game. Evolving games are the new hotness right now. To the fact that the BAFTA Awards now have an evolving games category. And it's like Vampire Survivors, which as you play it, it changes. Baldur's Gate 4 apparently had an evolving like part to it. So this game, the more you play it, the deeper and more robust the game becomes, apparently. So like
Balatro is in that vein as well.
Balatro's like that as well, yeah. So I'm excited about it. I've beaten the Overlord at least one time before we talked about it. I wanted to do that before we talked about it. And then hearing that Sejohn had owned the game when it was Monolith, I hadn't found anybody who did that. The only one was like a streamer that I watch. Like I remembered him streaming it a couple of times, and I'm like, this is interesting, but I don't know if I'd want to play it. But you know, it was cheap for the release day, and I'm like, I'll give it a try. And I enjoy it. I'm not devouring it the same way I devoured, like, say, Guns of Fury or Tiny Dangerous Dungeons Remake, released on March 6th. And I played that game so long that I'm like, oh man, it's probably like 1 o'clock. I could take a break here. Like, I could keep going, but I should take a break. It's 1 a.m. probably. I flipped my phone over and it was 3 a.m. I did not realize the time that I had lost to that game. And that was having completed it and then wanting to do like the difficult challenges of like only 3 hearts or do it in time trial mode, which I'm very happy. I did not know that I was offline the first time I completed time trial mode with a time of 20 minutes and 51 seconds, which that was my second time through the game. And my first clear was 90 minutes. So that's a pretty nice cut down, right? How is that? Like, man, 70 minutes off my time in the game. But our internet had gone down, and you have to be connected to the internet for the Steam achievement to unlock. That's a thing I learned this week. And so I'm like, crap, I got to do time trial again. And I'm like, I want to beat my time, but I don't know if I can. I beat it in 19 minutes and 55 seconds. My second time through. So I felt pretty good. Like, even though that's just a small improvement just the same. Really love that game. For $7, like, if you're looking for a pretty good Metroidvania, I would give Tiny Dangerous Dungeons Remake a shot. Really interesting boss fights. That is what the other thing. Like, that's the big addition. Because the original Tiny Dangerous Dungeon's still available. It's $5. It's Game Boy Color palette. It's not full color like the remake. There's only one boss at the very end. And the way that they modified the dungeon in order to add bosses is very interesting. And they're really interesting boss fights, except for the one that came over from the original game. That's what I'm going to say about that. I don't think I have any other games to talk about.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've just been doing a couple of different Borderlands runs. I've got some friends that are, super excited about. I mean, I'm also excited about the release of 4 coming out in September. So we've just been doing a whole bunch of runs on stuff. It's been good. Balatro has gotten kind of big in the family. The rest of the family discovered it, so that also was going on this week.
It feels like this was the week I mean, Balatro is one of those games that has little surges of people finding out about it. But I don't know what happened, but this seems to be a week where a lot of people found out about it, at least just around me. Because I saw a friend was playing it. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm trying to get gold stake on green deck, unlock a few Drew Jokers along the way. And he's like, I started playing this game on Tuesday. I didn't know it was Saturday. And I'm like, that's scary. Like, I lost 2 hours. You lost 4 days to Balatro.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, it's been pretty even keel at the moment. I'm thinking I might get into Monster Hunter. There's a group of people at work that are very into it, and it's that, Monster Hunter has that exact kind of fan base. The people that are into Monster Hunter are very into Monster Hunter, and so they've just been talking about it a lot, and it's got me. It's hooked me a little bit with some of the visual stuff. So I'm not big on like the Monster Hunter game loop of like go out, fight big thing, come back, like, trade up, gear up, go back out, hunt big thing. Like I don't know. Like it's not satisfying to me. It's not complete. But one of the big things about the last couple of Monster Hunter games that has been hugely important is that apparently the multiplayer has just been phenomenally fun for just a lot of people that normally couldn't get into this type of game. And so I think that there's a chance I might end up diving in on it just because so many people at work seem to be playing it that I might be able to get a couple of people to play with me.
You let me know if you do, because it's been difficult for me to get into it as well. But like now it's on really good hardware. Like one of the issues that was hard for me to get into Monster Hunter was for a time there it was only on portable platforms. And I know that like it jumped on to like PS3, but still it didn't feel great. Like, but it looks really good, this new one. I will admit that. And really that like you're right about that loop not working. That loop doesn't work for me either. But then I think about games like Dark Souls, which does work for me. And the reason why it works for me is the exploration aspect of it, because I've never really had that itch scratched with Monster Hunter. Like Monster Hunter, like it's very easy. Like, this is where you have to go, and so you go there.
And like one of the other things is that you have to kind of change your play style up, kind of in the same From Software mindset of like bosses, the monsters that you're fighting against have specific patterns and weaknesses that you really need to exploit in order to get them, right? Like, especially, I think, if I'm understanding Monster Hunter correctly, this is when we're starting to get into the deep stuff, but in order to get certain rewards from the hunt, you need to do things a certain way, right? Essentially, if you blow its eye out, you're not going to be able to collect its eye after the fight, that kind of thing. And you need specific parts in order to do specific things in the Monster Hunter world. That's just kind of the whole, this is all part of the loop of Monster Hunter, as I understand it, is that like you need to kind of teach yourself how to fight these things, gear yourself up properly to do so, and then do it all over again with the next one, right? And so on my own, there's not enough drive there for me. But with friends, it sounds like the perfect kind of thing to go out. It's like do like a hunting party game with. So I'll see. I'll see if I get into it. I will definitely. This will be the first place I talk about it. Believe me, because no one will be more surprised than I am that I'm playing Monster Hunter.
Very cool. Yeah, because I have looked at it. I'm like, it looks really good, and like, I don't know. But then I think about how like Elden Ring did not work for me because it was more of an open world. I liked the deliberate like exploration forcing that was in the Dark Souls series. Like and that's like why Dark Souls 2 feels so weird, is because it's not explore to find something, it's explore to the end of this area, warp back to that central spoke, and then go down another path. Which is what Elden Ring feels like.
Yeah, and I do think that Elden Ring has also people have developed some pretty standard lines in that game, as it were. Like there's definitely some play, like there's some proper ways to play that game, quote unquote, in terms of that. So I'd be curious, like a few years out now with Elden Ring, how you feel about that, because there are people that believe there is a way to play that game, even though it is open, right? And that's what happens with these open world games inevitably anyway. It's the same thing that happened with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, is like as much as you can go anywhere and do anything in those games, people have perfected some pretty quick and dirty, like direct paths, right, and things like that. And so I'm wondering if you would feel the same way about it. Although you've never been really big on the whole community aspect of those games anyway, though, right?
Yeah, I kind of like doing them on my own. Dark Souls 3, what I enjoyed, because I Dark Souls 3 was a game I got, and I like PAX was coming up in a week, and I'm like, I want to finish Dark Souls 3 on my own before I go to PAX. It ended up being not the second to last PAX that I actually went to. I haven't gone to a PAX East really because of the pandemic. The fact that the 2020 PAX was a super spreader event, that wasn't great. Super happy I avoided that one. But it kind of taints the event in a little way. But when Dark Souls 3 came out, and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to make sure that I'm done with it so that if I do meet up with other players, nothing can be spoiled for me. And the beauty of that game is because I didn't really roll credits, but completed the first loop, I got into the community aspect of the game a little bit more and was communicating and helping solve puzzles in a way that Axiom Verge or Animal, I've talked about how that part's not fun for me. But being there within the first 2 weeks, it actually was fun for me. And then with Elden Ring, I'm like, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to finish the game as quickly as possible. And it just was not fun. I just was not having a good time with it. I have friends who are like, you need to give Elden Ring another try. And here's the order to do things. And I'm like, that is so against how I want to approach that game. I don't want a roadmap. I want to do it on my own. And then I will be happy to look at your roadmap. Right? It's why, gaming kind of broke for me when I got Bloodstained Ritual of the Night that week early. Being able to play that game a week early when there was no information about it anywhere was awesome. Because if I got stuck, I had to solve the problem on my own. And it made me realize that I can do that if I isolate myself from the world. Look at something like Guns of Fury, where I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure I know how to do this, but it looks like the game is broken. And then I actually engaged in conversation with the developers to fix an issue in their game that I had found. That felt cool. I enjoyed that. I don't really want, I think of all the games from the NES and the SNES, that's how I played those games. There was no internet. And then Gen 3, 4, 5, I was on Game FAQs and looking for solutions on how to do stuff when I got a little stuck. And that kind of sucked. Ocarina of Time, I think I'm far enough removed from Ocarina of Time when I first played it, but I played it with a player's guide. I will admit that. I played Oracles of Ages and Seasons with a player's guide. I've since beaten them without player's guide, 20 years removed, but at the time, that was how I was playing games. That's sort of what gaming was. The market was get the player's guide so that if you get stuck, you have the solution.
Those Prima guides, they were a commodity. They had entire sections of them at bookstores were video game Prima guides.
Yeah. So I'm happy that we've moved away from that and there are games that you can just approach. Freaking a Tiny Dangerous Dungeons remake. I got stuck in it because they added an element to the third section of the dungeon. And I'm like, oh, I don't have the solution for this. And then I'm like, what if the solution is I have to go into this place without the item I need, and that's where I'll find the item. And that ended up what they added to the game. And that was cool. I'm not going to lie. It was cool that was the solution. But I didn't have anybody tell me, right? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think I think it's an option that needs to be there for people, right? I think it's one of those things that we need to make it, you need to make it so that kind of stuff is accessible to people if they want it, but not necessarily thrust on people in case they don't, right? And it's a hard balance to strike in modern gaming when we do, first of all, hear about games 6 months in advance, and we're following people on social media and Reddit, and pages are being thrown at us every week and shit like that. There's so much engagement with games now that to disengage yourself from it is hard. It's difficult to do. But you've done it a few times successfully with games. If you do it and you do, disconnect from things and just kind of do it your own way, that option should be available for sure. It shouldn't be handholdy, right? That's the big complaint.
Right. I like it. I try. And that's the issue though, is because if you wait, there's no reason to buy a video game new unless you kind of want that pure experience, because it tends to be like for the first 2 weeks, and this is like speedrunners have agreed to this as well. We want to give you like time to just play the game. That's why like leaderboards don't open up until the game has been out for a couple of weeks, because they want people to experience and see if they enjoy the game before they just start running it as fast as possible. And I like that. I think it's a good thing that's happened in the world of video games. And it's what allows me to do things like buy a game day of. But then the problem is after those 2 weeks, like if you're not going to buy it within those 2 weeks to have that completely, like there's not a bunch of solutions on the internet yet, wait until the game is like $20. But then if you're one of those people who waits for like the game of the year that includes everything, there's also a bevy of solutions available online. And like if you're just trying to play the game to enjoy it, like there's that temptation to go out and just get a solution rather than bang your head against the wall for hours and hours.
Which is, I mean, but what I'm saying is like that is also a valid way to play, right?
Oh yeah,
like,
and
if that is the way that
trying
they want to
say...
engage with the game, then that should be available to them. But making it necessary to the game is a choice, is a strong choice. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Again, and I'm not saying that anybody who doesn't play games the way I play, there's a problem there. I'm saying that for myself, if I waited for like Elden Ring to come out now, right? Like if I had not played Elden Ring until now, then there would be that temptation, and it would be difficult to resist to look at what is the route that people go through this game. I don't want that temptation. I want a chance to play it. Does that mean that I might play a game, hate it, and never go back to it? Yeah. But like first impressions matter with me in gaming.
That's true of
like
right. Yeah, and but that you still run that risk even if you wait. You know, right. That's not that factor is there anytime you start a game.
Yeah, which is strange, right? It's weird that with video games, I don't feel 100% compelled to complete them, but with like a movie, I'm gonna watch it, and it's about the time investment, right? Like a movie, the contract is 90 minutes to 2 hours. Right? And then when you go a little higher than that, then there starts to be a discussion about, do I want to watch this 4-hour movie?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely the time factor to it. Also, the engagement with the art form is different. Like I was talking about earlier, the ways that we engage with video games is very different than the way that we engage with a movie and engage with music, right? Movies and music.
Yeah.
But there's the way in which we engage with those things. We want to have a rounded, full experience, and it's not that in games we don't, but what that means is defined differently, right? My rounded, fun experience with Borderlands 3, my 9th time through, might not be a full playthrough storyline-wise of the game. It might be dicking around until I'm level 50, which will then let me then go into New Game Plus and then dick around some more and then play with some friends and dick around and never do like mainline shit in it. That just might not happen. But I'm still playing the game. I'm still engaging with it. I'm still getting something back from it, right? There's not really a way to not finish a movie but still engage with the movie. You could go buy the script, I guess. You could go like read about it. You could do that, which some people do. Some people like I will admit that if there is a horror movie that I'm on the fence about, I will very often just kind of Wikipedia the plot on it just to be like, all right, what like is this movie a movie that I can actually sit down and watch, or is it going to go too far? Because I do have a line with those movies. So like there is kind of that element to it, I guess. But generally, like if you start a movie, you finish the movie because that's what you've done. You've begun engaging with that piece of art, and the way to engage with that is to sit and watch it. There's no real other way. Whereas like video games, there is actually something unique in the ways in which you don't have to play the game, quote unquote, in order to be gaming. You can be doing other things in that game. You can be you can be hanging out with friends and doing silly stuff. You can be, I mean, Minecraft like basically made this its entire like steez, right? Is like there's no game here. You just kind of just chill out and play in this digital space.
Yeah, it's a good point. Roblox, similar.
Yeah.
It's a whole genre of gaming now. It's just to hang out in the world. and it can apply to any stuff. It's interesting. Last thing I want to say on gaming, and then I'm going to give you a choose your own adventure choice on the path we go down next.
Okay.
So I've brought up Guns of Fury a couple of times, and that is because of the interaction I had. They've just announced a patch, which is live on Steam and will be live on Switch, I think, by the next time that we record an episode of the Say Report, so give it a week. A lot of people were complaining that the map is a single color or that you can't fast travel everywhere. And they listened to the people, and they've added late game item that allows you to travel between save points. Which we had talked about if that's good or not in a game where you explore. But I guess if it's late game enough, then that's good because you've done the exploration part of the Metroidvania experience.
Yeah.
And now it's just
at that
for
point with
cleaning up.
me, you're running the risk that I'm losing interest. So fast travel is a nice add.
Yeah, it's a good quality of life modern addition to the game. And then the map, I mean, I don't understand that, but I realize, look at like Tiny Dangerous Dungeons remake. My first playthrough took me 90 minutes. My second playthrough, 20 minutes. I learn maps real quickly in games. So I understand that for some people, differentiating colors and showing where you are, that's going to be a big deal for them. But I like that Gelato Games, again, it's just two brothers who are doing the game, all that. And the reason I bring it up is because a month ago, I reached out after the release of the Casey Jones DLC to Super Evil Megacore, the company that does Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate, and they just got back to me about what I reached out to them. And their response was, "That is a good question. Have you joined our Discord?" And I had joined their Discord, and they were unable to answer me in the Discord, but I just wanted to shout out the fact that, the big corporation, I don't even know how big Super Evil Megacore is, but it's not two guys making the game like Gelato Games who got back to me and fixed the problem and like legitimately, thank you for helping us locate this glitch. We wouldn't have missed it. Like
it sounds counter, but that actually makes a lot more sense though, because at some point, like the level of engagement that you have with your audience at the smaller level is always so much more intimate, right?
Yes.
Like think about theater, a room with 10 people in it feels a lot more intimate than a room with 300, right? Sure. And like the same goes for the gaming experience. So like talking to the developer and getting quick changes and stuff on a smaller environment game, it feels like that actually makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me as well. The only reason I bring it up is because I didn't think they were ever going to get back to me. So like I am giving them kudos for getting back to me eventually. And then I am like, those kudos have a little bit of glass in them, broken glass in those kudos, because like the solution of join our Discord, like I already did that and you guys still haven't given me an answer to it. Like,
thanks for the non-solution though.
Yeah. Thank you. So yeah. All right. So choose your own adventure. We got some lost media that released on the world that we definitely got to talk about this episode. And I have a small thing about toys that I had an existential crisis on last night. Which one do you think you want to go on? Lost media or toys?
Let's do some lost media stuff. The toy stuff will probably make me sad.
Okay, good. And then we'll leave on sadness. You sure you don't want to do the sadness and then end on a happy note?
Oh, you mean we're gonna do either? We're gonna do both no matter what. Well, then let's start on the toys.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So NECA has released 3 figures that are coming out for like the collector cons that happen in the spring for some reason. Collector cons because it's through Walmart or Target. And I don't, it's weird because like you're pre-ordering an item, like the ability to pre-order this item opens on the 13th of March. And that's, oh, okay, that's fun. But like, when will I get it? Maybe December. Like,
yeah.
The fact that they're called cons makes sense. And the new standard price for their figures, based upon the 3 that they've shown, seems to be $50. Which is a $15 to $20 bump from where NECA's Ninja Turtle stuff was at. And it's kind of driving people upset about that. Like, why are they there? Granted, they are larger figures, but still, them not having anything like at that $35 price point is making people a little bit nervous. And there's been a
Yeah.
lot of discussion about that. Along the same lines of like YouTubers should do it, there has been this really interesting thing on YouTube of toy reviewers releasing their own toys with different levels of success, right? Like, we're not talking Mr. Beast's toys. We're talking like Pixel Dan tried to kickstart something that it didn't work out. But then some other companies are like, we're doing a figure, and those have been really well. So it's really interesting because you talk about like video game reviewers and YouTubers putting their money where their mouth is. It's happening all across YouTube, which is actually, I think, a positive movement for the art. I'm going to be honest there. But then last night, I thought of something, and it reminded me of a happy Sejohn memory. So we're going to have a happy Sejohn memory in this. But Sejohn, there used to be entire stores dedicated to selling only toys.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
in
man.
our lifetime,
KB
that has
Toys and
Toys R Us, Child's
Toys R
World
Us.
Toy Store, Toy Castle, like FAO Schwartz, which I know is still there, but still, like,
Yeah. Not really.
Yeah.
The name lives on as
Yeah.
like some zombie that they drag out every Christmas at Target, right?
yeah, or Macy's. Macy's drags out the
Yeah,
corpse
Macy's,
at
yeah.
Toys R Us. It's weird. It's this weird thing, but like, I think about all these complaints about the cost of toys now, right? Like, I inundated by people being like, I can't believe Super Turtle is $50. And honestly, I agree with them because it's the same size as all the other turtles. He just has a cape on, and he comes with domoids, but Ninja Turtles, they come with mousers, which are the same size as domoids, $35. Like, I understand this fear from people that NECA, seeing the industry, is like, yeah, we're going to raise our prices, just like Hasbro did for Marvel Legends, just like Super 7 did. So I understand that, but then I think, in our lifetime, some of my happiest memories are going into KB Toys, picking up 3 action figures, handing over $10.70, again, to walk out of that store with 3 new action figures. That was their whole thing, was that their action figures were 3 for $10, to the point that the labels they put on had that printed on there. Like, it was not something that they adjusted. That was the label. I'm looking at my Martian Manhunter that I got that way. JLA Martian Manhunter. He's terrible. I've kept him in the box, but he has the KB Toys sticker on it. And I remember the day after the Wii came out, you and I cut in class at college to go up to Rentham Village to buy the Mega Man figures from Jazzwares.
Oh, nice.
That's one of like my happiest Sejohn memories with you, because we got into some shit going up there and coming back, and we were only going about an hour away, but we still get into it, man. But like, so I get where people are like upset about that price hike, because in a lot of their lifetimes, that market has just changed so much. And then I think about like how many electronic stores there used to be, and Best Buy is kind of the only one that remains. And they don't even sell DVDs
then it's
anymore.
not really much of one anymore.
Yeah, right? Like, but it's I understand a little bit more of the raging at the coming of the darkness. I
mean, also, I don't know how the toy industry is going to be affected by everything going on right now in this country in terms of inflation, tariffs, talk, and all that shit. But I can only imagine that it's also going to be part of it all, right? Especially because a lot of this stuff is coming from places, manufacturers, and things like that, not in the USA.
Right. I mean, almost all of it is. And like, that's the big thing, is that the Chinese tariffs, even though all the other tariffs have been kind of walked back, those ones really haven't. So like, that could be the other reason that we're seeing this stuff. But I mean, at the end of the day, toys used to be for kids, and now they are a boutique industry for adult collectors, because they got us hooked young, and we're still hooked, right?
But I think the bigger problem is that I'm fine with there being a boutique industry popping up in from this stuff, right? Nostalgia is something that we have really learned to market over the last 20 years, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing. The problem is that those markets now exist at the expense of the original market, right? If the original like 3 for $10 toy market still existed, in addition to the boutique industry, that'd be great because that would be a market that would be able to grow and survive, right? Because kids would then grow up into that era where they would be the ones to spend that money later on. And so we would basically be teaching kids young, this is terrible. This is
It's
capitalism.
awful.
Like
It's
this is the evils of capitalism,
yeah.
right? But like so like if you're not into that shit, turn this off because this is going to be a nightmare scenario for you. But like this is how this is ideally supposed to work is that as a consumer, I have access to this stuff as a child and I get into this stuff, and then when I get older I can buy more expensive, nicer versions of those things, right? That was the ideal. But what's happened is we've completely lost the bottom part of that market, and it's all of the expensive things. So at some point you're going to have a generation of people that just don't give a shit because this stuff wasn't available to them when they were kids.
And that's already happening now. Kids today do not give a shit about toys. You give them an iPad and that keeps them happy. So that's why the other thing is that like they need to mine as much profitability out of the 30 to 50-year-olds who were, I mean, all of our entertainment in the 80s were commercials for toys. It's very hard to deny that.
No, 100%.
And
I actually was having this exact conversation while I was at lunch yesterday with a group of friends. We were talking about just some nostalgia, like just grabs for us. I recently picked up Pirates of Dark Water and SWAT Cats. Hanna-Barbera has started putting back out DVD collections that are cheap, like super cheap on Amazon. So I grabbed a couple, and like we were talking about how like man, back in the day those things like toyetic, everything was toyetic.
it's really interesting though that you mentioned two series that I don't think had toys.
I'm pretty sure SWAT Cats did. Pirates of Darkwater.
Pirates of Darkwater definitely
had
did.
it.
I'm a fool on that one because I have the monkey guys still. If we're going to be completely honest about that. Pirates of Darkwater definitely did. But I don't know if SWAT Cats ever did.
Oh, yeah. SWAT Cats totally did. I'm looking at them right now. Yeah.
Okay. I just never saw them, I guess.
I don't. They could be. You know what it could be is this could be the wheels of the internet turning here. Recent releases that are made to look like they are 30 years old.
Production character models. I'm looking at Carl's Jr. had toys. White Castle had toys. I'm looking to see if they actually had any that came out because I am seeing. Yeah,
I'm looking
Remco
like in plastic toys.
Yeah. Remco had action figures for him. So there's. Yeah. First of all, Remco is gone, but yeah, God, the Radical Squadron. I loved SWAT Cats. I didn't know you were a SWAT Cats boy, Sejohn.
SWAT Cats was one of those ones that really got me when I was we're rolling into that lost media conversation.
Yeah.
SWAT Cats was one of those ones that got me because it was on right after my nap time. I would wake up from my nap at my grandparents' house, and turn on TV and it was always SWAT Cats. Maybe I woke up a little bit earlier, so it was Smurfs. Snorks was also in that bunch. And then eventually SWAT Cats had a resurgence run at some point where it was on like late night. Like I don't know if it was on Toonami or if it was on just before Toonami. And I remember like catching it when I was older and being like, oh yeah, I fucking loved SWAT Cats. I remember that.
Yeah.
And so, like, now I deep in it.
Yeah, I remember I watched it as a kid. I enjoyed it. And then, like, when I was in college, I'm like, oh, SWAT Cats, hell yeah. This could be on in the background while we're illegally drinking in our dorm rooms. I mean, what? Illegally drinking. That's fun to say. Yeah. Yeah, no, so that's awesome. But it's just this weird thing, like, to think of, like, in our lifetimes, industries that existed to such a degree that they had whole stores. All they sold were toys.
Yep.
And that's nuts. We're talking about how that's lost. Let's talk about the lost media part of it and the fact that we got the Powerpuff trailer this week, which I hope means that the pilot is somewhere. We found the script. CJ and I have been looking for the pilot. If we find the pilot, we'll definitely watch the pilot for the show. Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't twist our arms. Don't throw us into the briar patch. We're going to do that. I'm excited.
For anybody that's not aware of what we're talking about, there was an ill-fated CW live-action Powerpuff Girls. Dove Cameron was one of the big gets for it, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, she was going to be Bubbles. Yeah. And then Quake, I can't think of the actor's name. Quake from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Daisy Johnson. What is the actor's name? I can't think of her dang name.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
Because they were on Shield together.
yeah, she was gonna be Blossom. She was Blossom.
How did I not
You
know
didn't pick that up on the trailer?
Huh?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, no,
Sejohn.
I, no, I'm so confused. That there's no way it was Chloe Bennett.
It was Chloe Bennett. Chloe Bennett was Blossom. That's why I was invested in this series.
Oh no, I was there for Dove Cameron, 100%.
That's
I had no idea Chloe
understandable.
Bennett was in
I
it.
get that. It's not an upcoming. I guess where is it in this? Yeah, no, she's definitely playing Blossom. And then because the comment when the stuff come out is why was Blossom as a little girl Asian and then she became white, and it's like, well, Chloe Bennett is of Asian descent. Like,
In fact, famously, she did an entire animated movie in order to try and bring Chinese animation to America. Like her whole like story. Her whole story about doing Abominable is a celebration of exactly that.
yeah. So, I mean, she's half, but it was really just as much fun as it was to see all the Powerpuff stuff. And, in the wake of, if you go to her IMDb page, there is a photo of her for something in like the outfit.
Nice.
Yeah. What I didn't know about the Powerpuff Girls, I mean, it's because of something like Riverdale. All these CW adaptations that were like, let's make an edgy version of something that's wholesome. So Archie Comics becomes Riverdale, the Powerpuff Girls becomes Powerpuff. And watching the Lost Media trailer, it looked awesome. I was like real mad that we didn't get that show. As I'm sure
it came out. The rumors of it were coming out around the same time that Flash was doing a really good Grodd storyline, and I remember everybody being like, "That's ridiculous! How would they ever do somebody like specifically Fuzzy Lumpkins live?" And all I could think is the same way they've been doing Grodd awesomely on Flash. Like, actually, I'm super down if that's like the like. So I was very excited when they first talked about this because I was like, this could be. I mean, like, I hope that it is understood that we both understand this would have been ridiculous, but it could have been fun, and like that is just something that we just don't get anymore.
Right. It's true. It was, I mean, the fun about Riverdale, we did the first season in that very special episode where we also watched Return to Riverdale and back again to Riverdale. That was a fun episode. Go listen to that one if you're looking for something. Like, Riverdale was banana pants. Like, you got, like, sometimes what we need to remember, right? And we talked about Suits LA, we talked about Hunting Party, we talked about all these other fucking TV shows. We need to remember that sometimes TV can just be fun and ridiculous. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's what this looked like. I didn't know that Donald Faison was going to be playing Dr. Utonium. That was a huge reveal. That Mojo and JoJo become a father-son duo. And, like, would they eventually become monkey-like? I have all these questions. It was an exciting thing to see, certainly. And we are saying now, if you are a listener to the Say Report and you have any leads on getting us a copy of the pilot, please let us know. But we are also, we've talked about shit like Super Clyde and the Wonder Woman live action with, Adrian Pasternak. Padalecki, sorry, Pasternak. Adrian Padalecki. Like, we love watching failed pilots, baby. And this one, just that trailer. Like, go watch that trailer. I'm a little upset that everybody's response was, I'm so happy this didn't get made. Because it's like, where's your sense of whimsy?
Yeah. No, man, that's where we are now. Like, if every show is not redefining television, if every movie is not redefining the box office, then somehow it's not worth making, I guess. And that's fucking ridiculous because we're never gonna have any fun again.
Right. I mean, look at just to bookend this, Suits LA. I loved that first episode, and then the second episode was just like a basic lawyer show, and I was disappointed in that. But at the same time, that's kind of what I signed up for. Like, I don't know, right? Like, I can't be too disappointed. And we're still going to recap. It's not like I came here and said, Sejohn, we're stopping the Suits LA recaps because the second episode was weak, right? It's a good thing to look at. And again, I honestly feel like it's like we could afford to do an episode like this as the second episode if immediately following it you can put on the third episode.
Yes. Yeah. No, I do think that the bingeability of television shows has definitely affected the ways in which they're being created. Like, I think there's no arguing that. And this is a pretty obvious way in which that can happen.
And let's talk about the fact that I think they're aware of how weak the second episode of Suits LA was and the response to it, because Brian Baumgartner, aka Kevin from The Office, he's going to be in the next episode of the series, and they started leaking that information like the next day to make sure that people are like, no, we can have fun and like fun little guest stars and people playing themselves. Don't worry. We know the second episode was a little bit weak. Let's give them a law episode and remind them that the law is boring.
Look, this is they have to give you a taste of what it would be like if they actually got too deep into the law shit to remind you that that's not really what you want.
Yeah, right? This is so that when we eventually turn Ted Black into a superhero after he's struck by lightning, you're like, yeah, I get it. I understand that this is more
much
fun.
more enjoyable than the law episodes.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about? I kind of commanded this episode a little bit. Apologies.
But... No, I checked out the new Wallace and Gromit this week. I really enjoyed it, but I've definitely got some feelings about it. Haven't watched Flow yet, the movie that beat it for best animated picture. So I'm going to watch that, and I'm curious to see how I feel about Flow beating it, because I did enjoy Wallace and Gromit so much. But a large part of that is just because I have a deep and abiding love for Wallace and Gromit. So there is that. But we'll talk more about that next week, because I do want a chance, I think, to watch Flow first and kind of talk about
so
those two together.
then Death Pack, let's watch Flow before the next episode. I love calling them Death Packs. They're not death packs. If it doesn't happen, we don't kill the other person. But I'll watch Flow. I have a lot of thoughts about it, but only because of the discourse I've seen around it online. But
I don't know fuck all about it, honestly. I really have not heard.
Jump into it then. Good. I'm glad that you don't know anything. I won't ruin it. Let's watch Flow, and we will have Flow and Suits LA featuring Brian Baumgartner to talk about next week. Also, I'm seeing Novocaine this next weekend.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
I'm getting work done on my teeth, and then I'm rewarding myself by going to see Novocaine while still on Novocaine. It just seems like a crazy thing to do. So let's see how that works out for me.
Nice. Excellent.
But yeah, so that's it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Say Report. If you want to keep the discussion going, we have our own Discord, just like Super Evil Megacore. If you go find us on social media, which is currently Facebook and X, formerly Twitter, there are invitations available in our profiles to come join the Discord. Or if you want a personalized invitation, send an email to thesayreport@gmail.com and we can facilitate you with one. Or if you just want to correspond via email, like it's the olden days, the dark ages of the internet, you can just send emails to us, thesayreport@gmail.com. And if you put my name, Devon Decker, or his name, Sejohn Sarowick, in the subject line, we will make sure that it is distributed appropriately, so that, your secret message for Sejohn I don't see or know anything about. Even though
I'm just going to put an auto message together that just invites you to the Discord afterwards anyway.
Also, he'll probably come running to me like, dude, this is the email I got. It's crazy. This person has crab hands. And they thought I was the only one who could understand what living with crab hands would be like. What have I done on the show, Devon, to indicate that I have crab hands? Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just the first thing that jumped to mind. You want me to use these clamps? These clamps I try to use at every opportunity? These clamps? All right. Well, thanks for joining us for the Say Report. We'll see you next time. Will, get us out of here.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Sarowick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.